Hello and welcome to the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, where you and I get to learn more about prenups as I interview professionals from the fields of family law, couples counseling, and wealth management. I'm your host, Libby Garabedian. Let's get started. The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Our Prenup Lawyer for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. This is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The podcast is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current. On this episode of the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, we have Lisa Ziederman, a managing partner at Miller Zeiderman LLP based in New York. Lisa is a matrimonial attorney, CFL, and CDFA, handling litigation in complex financial and custody divorce matters, as well as pre- and post-nuptial agreements. Lisa has been recognized for her excellence in the legal field by a host of organizations and has received multiple awards recognizing outstanding client service. She is a founding member of the American Academy of Certified Financial Litigators and a member of the Panel for Attorneys for Children, in addition to authoring a well-read blog on Psychology Today, legal matters, understanding mental health issues as they apply to divorce and child custody, and co-hosting the Savvy Ladies podcast, Carve the Ask. Lisa is regularly published in various media outlets, including the New York Law Journal and by the Forbes Business Council. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for being here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great, actually.
Great. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we dive into all of these questions I have for you, could you share how you got started in family law?
Sure. So it's a bit of an interesting story. I was in the fashion business and then I went through my own divorce. And believe it or not, I found it so interesting that I decided I had to go get my undergraduate degree because I didn't have it yet, and also go to law school, and decided that I wanted to become a matrimonial attorney. So it was basically going through it myself that made me decide this is what I wanted to do.
That's amazing to have such a personal connection to your practice.
It is. It is. It makes it, I think, very good for our clients because I understand both sides of the story. I understand what it's like for the lawyer, obviously, but I also understand how difficult it is for the client on the other side of the fence, essentially, and why it's so important that the lawyer and the client are able to work together collaboratively.
So what is your philosophy that you bring to your practice of law?
So I would say it's mostly about being responsive and prepared. I think that's the most important. And of course, making sure that you've kept up on the law and that you are fully familiar with the cases that are coming out. But mostly it's about being responsive, because at the end of the day, things move very quickly sometimes in a family law case, and somebody needs an attorney that they can speak to. So it may be, 7:30 at night. It could be 7 o'clock in the morning. It could be a Saturday. If they need to be able to run something by an attorney, they need to actually have responsiveness. The other part of it is that I also have a great team that works with me on a lot of the matters. And as a result of that, if I'm not available because I'm on trial for somebody else's matter, they are fully familiar with the situation also and can jump in. And I think that's very, very important.
That is, being able to have your clients connected at all times so they don't feel like they're drowning when something's going on.
Yeah, or that they're going to make the wrong move. I mean, it's that one move that you make that was the wrong move that really can throw your situation into turmoil. So I think if people really work with us and they work collaboratively with us as client and attorney, and they take our advice, and frankly, if we listen to what their needs are, and we also, I would say this is the other thing that is probably my philosophy. We prepare every single case, unless we know it's a case that we're just reviewing a settlement agreement or we're working with a mediation situation, which we do. But essentially, if we take a case from day one, we are preparing as if that case is going to go to trial. Because if we prepare as if the case is going to go to trial, we will be fully prepared throughout the case.
Makes sense. Preparing Worst case scenario. Hopefully it doesn't have to go that far.
Exactly.
Now I want to turn to your philosophy on prenups. What is your drafting process and for prenups or postnups?
So essentially, I do a 1 hour consult, usually with the client, the prospective client. And then once the client has retained us, we get on a phone call again and just go through it. Usually put it together, some sort of a term sheet so that everybody is on the same page. And then we start drafting. And I always ask the client, well, have you had the discussion with your spouse to be, your fiance? Have you discussed a prenup? How much time is there? How long have you been discussing it? Are these terms agreed upon? If not, do you want to have a discussion with your fiance to make sure that you're both on the same page? Because we don't want to just be drafting for ourselves. We want to be drafting so that everybody can come to an agreement at the end of the day.
Now, I want to touch on that point in a minute, but first, you obviously have a background in finance. How does financial goal setting and estate planning enter into the conversation?
So I'm a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, which means that I have gone through a program that essentially has trained me to look and be able to spot particular financial issues in a matter. And on top of that, I've taken the certification for a certified financial litigator. So I have those two certifications, which I think are very helpful. Frankly, I also have my negotiating background in the fashion industry, where I was negotiating with retailers across the country. So I have a lot of negotiating experience, which I think is very helpful. I would say that bringing all of that to the table, plus, frankly, a lot of life experience at this point, I think makes it much easier for me to be able to see when I look at a prenuptial agreement, what the pitfalls might be. And on top, I'm going to say that I've litigated prenuptial agreements where people have not drafted correctly. So, for example, there may be undefined terms, or maybe they left something dangling, I'm going to say. And so that became an issue for litigation. And so all of those things have taught me to read these prenuptial agreements very carefully, to draft them very carefully, that every word will have meaning. And most importantly, that the client understands the prenuptial agreement, because if they just, are signing a prenuptial agreement and they don't understand what's in it, or they don't understand that they have to watch out for certain things as they're going through the marriage and actually do certain things, then they're going to end up in a situation, which are the situations that we litigate, right? So we don't want that for our clients.
Now, going back to that idea of drafting a prenup for both parties and not just one side, so someone's not just left out, what advice would you give to someone who is presented with a prenup by their partner on how to be their own best advocate?
So first of all, we draft really for one side. So let me just say that, okay? We are advocates, and we recommend always that everyone have their own attorney, because that is one of the essential parts, I think, of entering into a prenuptial agreement, is that each party is represented. Yes, people can proceed on their own, but we definitely recommend that they have an attorney review the agreement. Once we get past that point, right, the agreement needs to be something that is palatable to both parties, right? Both parties. And we make sure, and when we're drafting, that again, that those conversations are being had and that there is some communication. If there's no communication between the parties and they strictly want the lawyers to communicate, then those lawyers really have to work hard to communicate and to make sure that the draft at the end of the day is what everybody actually wanted it to be. That doesn't mean that everybody gets everything they want, by the way, because it might not be that way. It might be that somebody, has an idea of what marriage is, and somebody else has a different idea of what marriage is in terms of finances. And I think it's really important to understand that this may be the case. There may be people who are in second marriages. There could be people who are going to inherit a lot of money. There could be people who are coming into marriages with what we call separate property, which is premarital property, and they want to make sure that that's protected. It could be that somebody has gone through a divorce and they've already, frankly, paid out equitable distribution and spousal support, and they don't want to do that again. And that's understandable. And I think that as long as everybody understands, once they have signed this prenuptial agreement, what the rules of the road are going to be, then it's all fine.
So there is a level, aside from communication and collaboration, there is a level of financial literacy that is needed on the part of the couple.
Without a doubt. But I think, again, this is the reason why, you need to have attorneys review your prenuptial agreements, because the fact is that you may not have that financial background and you may not understand what an active versus a passive business are, or what restrictive stock units actually are, or what, and I'm going to use a word that most people will not understand, a de Jesus formula is when it comes to restricted stock units, right? And we do draft complex, high stakes, prenuptial agreements that have, frankly, a lot of money at risk. And so they have to be drafted carefully.
So I want to turn to your role as a savvy lady and the co-host of The Power of the Ask. So you're all about female empowerment through financial literacy. How did you come to be a part of this amazing resource?
So I love this topic. I'm so glad you asked about it. So first of all, I'm going to say Savvy Ladies is an incredible organization, and it is about female empowerment through financial literacy. And it is my passion, because I believe that everybody should be literate in terms of their finances. They should understand what their finances are. And it's so disturbing, frankly, how many people come into my office and say, I can't see the finances. He or she will not let me look at the finances, and I don't understand what we have. I have no idea. I ask, what's the marital estate? I have no idea. I just don't know. I have no way to look at the accounts. I have no way to view them. I don't have any access to them. I don't know if I have $400 or $4 million. And so from that, I ended up meeting Stacey Francis, who is the founder of Savvy Ladies. And Stacey had founded Savvy Ladies many years ago, probably about 21 years ago, because her grandmother had been abused. And one of the reasons that she was being abused is because she didn't have the finances. She didn't have control of the finances in order to leave the marriage. There was finances. She just didn't have any access to it. And so Stacey, as essentially in honor of her grandmother, started Savvy Ladies. And Savvy Ladies has an incredible helpline, which is free of charge, which is nationwide, which women can call in or download the app that we have actually for Savvy Ladies and ask a financial question and be paired with a financial professional who will actually have a consultation with them about their financial question and help them free of charge. And it's savvyladies.org. So it's been an incredible resource, and we have an incredible board made up of men and women and great supporters out there. We're just about to do our October gala, and we have an enormous amount of support. We're going to do it at the Museum of Arts and Design. And, great board. We have Julia Rogers, for example, who is actually the owner of Hello Prenup, if you're familiar with Hello Prenup. And Julia and I met. She was actually on Shark Tank, and she and I met, and we developed a friendship, and she came onto the board, and she's been handling a lot of the technology committee issues along with other people we have somebody from Microsoft. It's an incredible board, actually. So it's great, and I love it. And we help about 3,000 women a year through this nationwide, and it is growing and growing. And, we're always looking for more support. So, anybody who would like to make a donation can do so.
That is such an incredible resource, and I can only imagine how impactful it has been on so many people.
It's been amazing for people. And we hear from women all the time that they had an incredible hour. They come back again. They may get a different financial professional at that point because it's a different question. but we hear from them that they are feeling so relieved, so much less anxiety and stress about their finances. And that is huge. It's huge. And I think we are starting this wave of starting to have what we call money conversations. And so we are asking actually this coming year for women to take a pledge to have money conversations with someone, whether it be your employee, your employer, your spouse, your the parent of your child, your best friend, your son or daughter, but have a money conversation. And we're actually going to be, we have these boxes of cards, and we're going into libraries and schools, and we're going to be actually really igniting this entire trend of money conversations.
That's wonderful. So, how important is it for couples to have those money conversations in order to build a sustainable financial future?
We see so many people who come in that are coming in because they actually either don't have control of their finances, or they don't agree on what to do with their finances. And that is often the reason for the breakup of a marriage. So it is so important for people to be having these money conversations. And look, I've been married, it'll be 28 years. And I will tell you that my husband and I probably have money conversations every single day. Okay. Now, I don't expect everybody's probably going to do that, but we do. We literally have conversations. We'll talk about either something financial to do with my business, or a real estate deal that he's going into, or last night I reviewed a real estate deal, and we were trying to figure out, well, is it a good real estate deal? And he had, it's someone who he's dealt with for a long time, and how much money do we want to be able to invest? And these are conversations. So after being in a meeting all day, for like, I think 9 hours yesterday negotiating an agreement, I came home and I had that discussion. And then we were discussing some other things that have to do with money conversations, right? And I'm sure that this weekend we will be having more money conversations. And it's not painful, it is painless, because we're on the same page. And we're on the same page because it's a conversation that we have on a daily basis. So there's not any buildup of acrimony or bad feelings, or a feeling of dishonesty or abuse or any of those things, because this is part of our lives, those money conversations.
As you talked about this wave of change you experienced with Savvy Ladies, in your practice, have you also seen the culture around prenups change?
Oh my God, yes. Like tremendously. So we are doing so much prenup business at this point, frankly. We are writing prenups all day long, every day. That was not the case, I would say, even 3 years ago. This is definitely a wave that is happening. More and more people are going to be entering into prenuptial agreements, and for good reason. They should be entering into prenuptial agreements, because I'm going to say the other side of it, okay, for those who don't enter into prenuptial agreements, is that if there is what we call a separation event or termination of the marriage, and you didn't have that great prenuptial agreement, you are looking at a large amount of legal fees. Okay, a large amount of legal fees. You are looking at perhaps a very arduous process in terms of a court system that is overloaded. And it's not that our judges don't care, because they care, but it is overloaded. And you are looking at taking apart, essentially, piece by piece, the marriage that you may have had for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And had you had that prenuptial agreement setting forth all of the parameters, nobody would be in a big surprise here, because they would know what the roadmap is. And it's a roadmap, right? That's the key. It's a roadmap. And also, it would go faster, easier, less expensively. And so I really encourage people to enter into prenuptial agreements, or postnuptial agreements for that matter, if your state actually upholds postnuptial agreements, because I don't believe that in every state it does, and that you do it with a really knowledgeable attorney. And yes, it may be costly, frankly, okay? It may cost, but it's so worth it. okay, to do it, because you're essentially creating a roadmap, and then you could breathe easy. And by the way, don't like just ignore the prenuptial agreement after you've had it drafted and you've signed it. Like, dust it off, review it, pick up the phone, call your attorney, have a conversation, like check in.
So the prenup is really, aside from being a safety net, a financial plan, it's also a living document, right?
I love that. And I was thinking those words before you said them, but that's exactly what it is. It's a living document. It is going to carry you through your entire marriage. Okay. And you should be checking it and checking in. And I have clients who call me, maybe like once a year, or when things happen during their marriages. Maybe they're having a child, or they're buying an apartment, or they're selling their business, or they just made partner in a law firm, all of those things. And they want to make sure, does their prenup cover them? And then we look at the prenuptial agreement and we have a little chat, and we catch up, and then we decide, do we maybe need to amend or change, or enter into a postnuptial agreement? And so, yes, it's a living, breathing document, because you are living, breathing people.
What point should couples, when they're going through these milestones in their life, consider making amendments to their prenup, or if they never got one, drafting a postnup?
So I think that when they're making a very large purchase, an apartment, or they're making partner in a law firm or another type of firm, or they're buying a business, or they're starting a business, or they just got a great big inheritance. Okay. These are reasons to either dust off your prenup, take a look, call your attorney who wrote your prenup, see how it all is shaking out in your prenuptial agreement. Have a conversation with your spouse if you feel uncomfortable about, what it says. And if necessary, enter into a postnuptial agreement. I think these are all reasons. It also could be a reason if you have a child, because perhaps, okay, I'm going to say this, perhaps you and your spouse decided to waive alimony/maintenance. And now one of you wants to be a stay-at-home parent, and the other one of you agrees that that is a really good thing for the family. But there was no provision for maintenance or alimony in that agreement. Rather than just ignore it, let's get all on the same page and maybe make a provision so that everybody feels taken care of. The person who's out working feels, okay, I can work and live and breathe and think about, work. And the other person thinks, I'm going to be okay if I stay home and I take care of our child, which is what we both want.
So, and thinking about change and considering all of your other important relationships you've had in your life, whether that be platonic or romantic, they're bound to change. And so would it be expected that, your marriage would change as you and your spouse grow as a couple and as individuals?
Sure. I mean, I think that marriage, I don't know that the basics of your marriage change, right? I always think that your spouse should be your best friend. Okay. I will say I have a very high bar for what marriage should be, probably much higher than I'm told than most people. But I believe that when you wake up next to your spouse, you should be happy, like every day, frankly, that spouse is next to you. Okay, I've been told that that's crazy, that that's not a bar, that maybe if we could just do it like, 80% of the time, this would be good. But I do have a high bar for it. But I think that as people grow and their professions may change, you may change where you're living, responsibilities may change within the marriage, somebody may become ill. You have, as I said, children, different responsibilities, in terms of taking care of the children, or working or not working. Maybe the wealth shifts in some way. Somebody gets a big inheritance, somebody loses money in an investment. All of these things are things to be considering as you're going through, and they're going to change. And so again, living, breathing document. Look at your prenuptial agreement. Make sure you had one. If you didn't, go get that postnuptial agreement.
What advice would you give to couples on how to have a successful marriage?
So I think you have to spend a lot of time on being in your marriage. So, my husband and I have dinner, I would say 99.9% of the time, every night. Okay. We spend our weekends together. We really like being together. We travel together. My husband is, besides being the love of my life, he's my best friend. He's my biggest supporter. I'm his biggest supporter. We are there for each other. I think those are the things that you need to be to have a successful marriage. But you have to, that means some balance too. Now, I am very much a big proponent of people having careers and being successful at those careers. But I think that if you decide that you're going to have dinner together every night, you should be there to have dinner every night. And so I might go, for example, to an event, but by 8 o'clock, I'm gone from the event. I might not stay for the dinner. I might just stay for the cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, see everybody I want to see, say hello, and then I'm going home to have dinner with my husband. I've accomplished both, okay, but I've been there for my husband. And so I think that's a big part of it, being there for your spouse, being the biggest support, the biggest advocate for the other person in your life.
That's really great advice, and that's amazing that you have that relationship.
It is a very amazing relationship, I have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and I really appreciate how candidly you spoke and everything you had to offer.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I love our prenup lawyer.
Thank you. That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening to Our Prenup Lawyer. Make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below. Follow us on Instagram at Our Prenup Lawyer, and listen to us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and watch us on YouTube. See you guys next time.